My mother often said that if you don't notice on a galloping horse, then it's not important. So we will gallop into early Kentucky furniture. The Kentucky bluegrass was among the first regions settled west of the Appalachians. It began in 1775 while Kentucky was part of the Virginia colony. Lured by gentle topography and fertile soils, settlers initially lived in forts to survive native hostilities. This map shows settled areas by 1790. Then the bluegrass was an island of settlement in an ocean of wilderness. By this time, the colonies were states, and Kentucky was part of Virginia. In 1792, Kentucky became the 15th state. Native threats ended in 1794, and settlers left the forts and began development with vigor. Before Kentucky, there were three American regions: New England, the Mid-Atlantic, and the South. But Kentucky was in a new region called the West, and everyone knew it as a Frankfurt paper was called the Western World, and Henry Clay was known nationally as Harry of the West. Before regular steamboat service, which began about 1820, Kentucky was commercially isolated. Imports came by wagon to Pittsburgh, by flatboat down the Ohio River and into Kentucky by wagon, or along the Philadelphia Wagon Road to the Wilderness Trail and into Kentucky by packhorse. Exports went by flatboat down the Ohio and Mississippi rivers to New Orleans, and the boatmen returned to Kentucky on foot along the Natchez Trace. We will explore furniture made in Kentucky prior to the steamboat era, or dating from about 1790 to 1820. These bluegrass clocks illustrate the styles and dates. Sugar chests were a Western form, as most were made in Kentucky and Tennessee. Sugar was a Caribbean import and costly to transport overland. In Kentucky, sugar was like gold and kept under lock and key. Most interiors were divided. The larger division was for brown sugar and the smaller for white. Sugar came as cones that were broken up with sugar nippers, and the pieces were kept in divided drawers for use. By far the most common sugar containers were chests, but there were other types, like sugar desk, which were mostly a Kentucky form. Most have divided interiors and drawers, and are small and look like a miniature desk. Kentucky sugar desks are not rare, as I have over 50 examples in my files. This form blends a chest and a desk, and has drawers below the fallboard. The bottom left example has false drawers in the front. These are sugar bureaus, which look like miniature chest of drawers. Some have small drawers under the hinged tops, and others have a functioning lower drawer. These are sugar desks with spice cabinets. And these are sugar presses, which have a divided box over a two-door press. Then there are the oddballs, like this sugar box, which looks like a miniature blanket chest, but has a divided interior. There are several known groups, like the cellaret form sugar chest group, with string in the front legs, topped with a dot and an arch. This group has a similar form, but with escutcheons having scratched faux string and a vine-like design. One has a patera with a scratched design, and the profile of a man. This group has a similar box-on-frame format, but is wider. These are members of the Route 68 group. One is a full-size sugar chest, and two are miniatures. There were also regional preferences. This design was popular in Frankfort and northward to the Ohio River. And this format was popular in Clark and Montgomery counties. Another Kentucky trait is the diversity of styles. Most early cabinet makers worked elsewhere, then brought their craft to Kentucky, so Kentucky furniture often emulates designs from faraway places, like this clock, which is similar to clocks made in southeast Pennsylvania. So the cabinet maker likely came from Pennsylvania to Kentucky and made this clock. Or these Pennsylvania chairs, except this one was made in Kentucky. Or these Winchester, Virginia pieces with distinctive scrolled arches, except this one was made in Kentucky. Or this Lexington sideboard group. The cabinet maker might have come from England, or perhaps had a copy of the cabinet maker's London Book of Prices, where a similar design is illustrated. Tambour desks are a New England form rarely seen in the South, yet there are 16 or more Kentucky examples. Or this sugar chest, which reflects the Biedermeier style of Germany and Austria. We could go on, but you get the point. Kentucky furniture is stylistically diverse. Prior to steamboats, most Kentucky furniture was made of local woods. Mahogany could be had, but Kentuckians preferred cherry, and to a lesser degree, walnut. In 1810, a Kentucky man wrote to a friend in South Carolina that our cherry tree furniture far surpasses in beauty the mahogany. This cherry games table was made in Lexington about that time. Kentucky furniture can be separated into urban from Lexington and Frankfort and rural from the rest of the state. We will approach it this way, beginning with Lexington. Prior to 1820, Lexington was Kentucky's economic and cultural center. It was known as the Athens of the West and was Kentucky's largest furniture manufacturing center. But when Daniel Spencer arrived in 1793, Lexington was a wilderness outpost of mostly log homes. His trek to Kentucky was dangerous, as many attacks by natives were reported that year. In this one, natives abducted 2 boys, tomahawked one, and mangled his body. You might know Spencer's furniture, as this desk and bookcase was on the cover of Albert Sachs' book and sold at Christie's in 1989 for $12 million. And this chest recently sold at Sotheby's for over $1 million. Both are attributed to Daniel Spencer. He was born in Greenwich, Rhode Island, and moved to Newport in 1755, where he likely apprenticed with John Goddard, his uncle. He was in Massachusetts by 1771 and Providence by 1778, where he was put in debtor's prison in 1785. Spencer was thought to have died in Rhode Island, but we now know that he came to Kentucky. In 1793, Spencer advertised in the Kentucky Gazette that he was opening a Lexington cabinet shop. In 1796, William Houston advertised that Spencer had died, and 2 weeks later that his estate would be sold. These are examples of Spencer's Rhode Island furniture. They were once attributed to John Goddard of Newport due to his unusual method of marking the drawers. Several calligraphies used Goddard's method, and when a desk signed by Spencer turned up, those pieces with his calligraphy were re-attributed. Spencer's Kentucky presence is witnessed by 3 clocks, one at Colonial Williamsburg, another found in an old photo, and this one that is in my collection. It was owned by William Morton, an early Lexington retailer who operated a store in this building, and once furnished this home, which Morton built in 1810. That remains standing today. The clock is listed in Morton's estate inventory as an 8-day clock, It was sold in 1836 to settle Morton's estate. This is Colonial Williamsburg's clock. Its Kentucky origins are proven by Kentucky clock cleaner notations. Spencer's Kentucky clocks share the same form and have many Rhode Island details. The most obvious are the rosettes and finials on the Morton clock, which is a ball wrapped in petals topped with a corkscrew flame. It is the same finial as on these Rhode Island pieces attributed to Spencer. The carved rosettes on the Kentucky clocks strongly relate to those on Spencer's Rhode Island pieces. The discovery of Daniel Spencer in Kentucky was a collaboration between Ron Hurst and Tara Chakarda of Colonial Williamsburg and myself. To learn more, I suggest an article in the Chipstone Foundation's 2018 journal. But for our purposes, we will close on Daniel Spencer with this graphic that shows the breadcrumb trail of his craft in Rhode Island and Kentucky. This story repeats itself again and again with Kentucky furniture, that skilled craftsmen from distant places migrated to Kentucky and made furniture. There are many Lexington chair groups, like the robust turned bamboo group, that have exaggerated nodes and single side stretchers. This chair is attributed to William Challen and was made for William Dallin as part of a set that furnished Pope Villa in Lexington. Challen made chairs in London, New York, and Lexington. He moved to New York by 1796, advertising fancy chairs in the newest London patterns, and is credited as the first to advertise fancy in America. Challen moved to Lexington in 1808 and advertised fancy chairs in the Kentucky Gazette. He claimed long experience in London and New York. These chairs are attributed to Challen's Lexington shop. The Dallin chairs are on the left, and the pair on the right were owned by Archibald Logan, a Lexington tanner. The Dallin chairs are sophisticated. Notice the curvature of the back post and the reeded legs. Challen traits include ring turns in the back post, a diamond shape in the front stretcher, two side stretchers, and bell turns in the front legs. Painted brown with motifs in gold leaf and black paint, including a caduceus, torch, and oak branches symbolizing enlightenment and strength, prints of whale's plumes and hemp shocks, an eagle, and tobacco leaves. This chair is also attributed to Challen and has the same form as the Dallin chairs, except the back, which has the same spindles as other Lexington chairs, and retains its original paint. Challen advertised bamboo chairs like the benches on the porch of this Lexington home in a 1930s photo. Similar chairs turn up in the bluegrass today, and they were likely made in Challen's Lexington shop. These are New York chairs, and these are Kentucky chairs. They are nearly identical, so the New York chairs were likely made in Challen's New York shop. The Kentucky chairs are linked to Challen based upon a chair labeled William Gaunt, Georgetown, Kentucky, dated 1821, which is this chair. When lined up with the Dallin chair, an 1815 chair, and a chair made by D.S. Moffett, one can see a school of chair making. The traits include ring turns in the back post and a diamond shape in the front stretcher. The school is readily seen in the front legs, which maintain the traits as the styles change and with the different makers. The obvious candidate for the earliest chair is Challen. William Gaunt presumably worked for Challen in New York and followed him to Lexington with his brother Anthony, who apprenticed with Challen in 1813 and was his partner by 1818. These chairs are later but have Challen traits. They are in the school of Challen and made in various shops that were influenced by him. Kentucky has an abundance of fine clocks, but Elijah Warner made clocks for the middle class by making low-cost cases with cheap wooden works and selling on credit. He was born in Massachusetts in 1786, worked as a clock peddler in Connecticut by 1811, and at age 26 struck out on his own, taking several wagons of clock works to resell in Kentucky. At some point, he started a clock factory in Lexington, and this was his standard model. It has distinctive cutouts in the trunk door and apron, which echo one another in the positive and negative space. To this design, he changed things up with various rosettes and finials, but with similar hood columns. Most Warner cases have wooden works made by Silas Hoadley in Connecticut or Luman Watson in Cincinnati, which he installed for a finished product. And he did so again and again, keeping the overall design. Based upon the outstanding loans at his death, it is estimated that Warner produced over 1,000 clocks. Most have a standard case. A few have deluxe cases with brass works, but with the same rosettes, finials, hood columns, and trunk doors. Warner's deluxe cases are similar to a Lexington clock on frame group. Both have Warner rosettes and hood columns, but the latter lacks the Warner door. These are members of the Lexington clock on frame group. They all have Warner turnings, which were likely acquired from his shop, as Warner advertised every description of turning. Clocks with fine cases and 8-day brass works were also made in Lexington, like this Yarnellton Station group. They are identified by the form, which has a stocky trunk, scrolled arches, wider than most, with a flared plinth, and the same rosettes. They share construction methods like horizontal backboards, and the bases are veneered with geometric designs. Some trunk doors have a crotch-cherry oval, and one has a key inlaid above the dial. The trunk chamfers are inlaid, one with patterned string, and the others with tiger maple panels, and these are the known banding patterns. These clocks have notes on the seat boards by Thomas McMurray stating that he made the works in 1807 and 1808 for Asa Blanchard, who was a Lexington silversmith. Blanchard contracted the works and case and retailed the complete clock. Both cases were made in the same unknown shop, along with a third clock. The cases are shallow in depth, and two have unusual low-angled scrolled arches. Similar arches occur on this furniture, which I call the swooping arch group. This group was possibly made in the same shop. Archibald McIlvaine was a Scottish cabinet maker who worked in Lexington from 1784 to 1819. Until this chest turned up, his work could not be identified. On a drawer is W. Hickman of Fayette County, who apprenticed with McIlvaine from 1804 to 1809. The chest is about 1810, so he could have made it in McIlvaine's shop or his own. Either way, it is in the school of McIlvaine, which is easy to recognize, as the pulls are mounted inboard more than normal, and the chests have fancy stringing. Some have panel backs and dustboards, which are earlier features. These are McIlvaine School examples. The chests have similar proportions, apron shapes, and the unusual pull setup. Porter Clay worked in Lexington from 1799 to 1808 and was among Kentucky's best cabinet makers. He was born in Virginia in 1779, a brother of Henry Clay. Porter came to Kentucky in 1792 and was apprenticed to Thomas Whitney, an Irish cabinet maker who worked in Lexington from 1792 to 1819. In 1798, Porter ran away from Whitney, going to New York, where he worked as a journeyman. He returned in 1799 and opened a shop in this house on Mill Street. In 1804, Porter made furniture for his brother, including a sideboard, a pair of games tables, and 18 chairs. In 1806, Porter advertised that he knew the latest fashions in New York and Philadelphia, and in 1807 that he had returned from a U.S. tour where he learned the newest fashions in Europe and America, and that he had partnered with Robert Wilson. Wilson was an English cabinet maker who worked in Lexington from 1792 to 1825 and is known for his shapefront furniture. The Clay and Wilson partnership ended in 1808, and Porter ceased cabinet making at age 27. He became an attorney and was practicing law by 1813. Ultimately, he became a Baptist preacher and died in Arkansas in 1850. Clay's advertisements show his passion for bringing the latest furniture styles to Kentucky. That he knew New York styles is indicated in these games tables having a fifth swing leg, which is a trait of that city, as well as the 5-part apron layout on this table, which is also a New York trait. The flowers on this stone-top table for serving whiskey are like some found on Philadelphia furniture. This shapely sideboard with tambour doors lacks an overhang below the upper drawers and might be mistaken for a Philadelphia sideboard. Well, it actually was. It sold near Philadelphia in 2007 as a sideboard from that city for about $27,000. But it was made in Kentucky by Clay, where he made several similar sideboards. In 1807, Porter advertised that he had returned from a U.S. tour, which apparently included Baltimore, as this block front games table by him has a flower typical of that city, as well as this kidney-shaped sideboard and other furniture. Most Porter Clay games tables have cove-shaped aprons, which is a trait of his shop. But the table with the Baltimore flower has a block front apron. Perhaps it is a hybrid from the 1807 Clay and Wilson partnership, combining Wilson's block front with Clay's New York style fifth swing leg. In 1807, Porter claimed that he knew the latest European styles, which is demonstrated in this racket-back chair with wonderful carving. As the design is from Sheridan's drawing book, published in London in 1802. Clay's knowledge apparently came from owning a copy of this book. His carving skills are also demonstrated in these tester beds, in which all 4 posts are carved. This composite is a good idea of Porter Clay's craft during his 9-year cabinet-making career in Lexington. It is an amazing body of furniture, given that he began at age 18 and ceased at age 27. In 1790, Frankfort was a river landing with a few log cabins. In 1800, the population was 600, grew to 1,200 by 1820, and became an important producer of furniture. This Frankfort landscape was painted in 1814 by Robert Irvin, a British POW in the War of 1812. The focal point is the Kentucky Penitentiary, where inmates saw lumber as part of the prison industries. The prison opened in 1800 and began using convict labor in 1804 to produce chairs, cut stone, and other products. Production continued until 1928, and most extant chairs, like these, postdate the Civil War. These are antebellum chairs that date from about 1810 to 1850. The earliest design is more sophisticated, with the front wider than the back, and slats and seat rails that arc outward. The arms are shaped and connect in a continuous line with the front legs. The back posts arc inward and swell outward near the floor. Later examples have a shaped crest. It is an Italian design invented in 1807 by Giuseppe Descalzi in Chiavari, Italy, and is known as a Chiavari chair. Italians have adopted the chair to changing styles over 2 centuries and continue to make Chiavari chairs today. Even when modified by a chair artist, the design relationship with early Chiavari and Kentucky penitentiary chairs is obvious, but how the Italian design came to Kentucky in the early 19th century is a mystery. Cut dolomite was also produced by the penitentiary for foundations and public buildings, like the old state capitol, and for tabletops, which cabinet makers mounted on tables used to serve whiskey. John Brown, Kentucky's first U.S. Senator, completed Liberty Hall in Frankfort in 1801. Many original furnishings survive, which are key pieces to which furniture lacking history can be correlated, like this fancy settee and chair, which are members of the Liberty Hall fancy chair group from either Lexington or Frankfort. The correlating features include medial slats, stretchers, and leg turnings. Or this bench, which is part of the sausage-turned Windsor chair group. All of the turned elements have periodic swells that look like sausage links. This desk and linen press have always been at Liberty Hall and were made in the same shop. They have the same cornice, but on the desk it has dot and dash inlay. The press is like plate 87 of Hepplewhite's book, which suggests that the maker had a copy. This serpentine chest is part of the flush top group, which is among the finest Kentucky groups. It is named for the lack of overhang of the top board, which gives a sleek and refined look. This clock also belongs to the group, which has a marquetry fan in the base. Both pieces were early furnishings of Liberty Hall. This bow-front chest is another member of the group. It has vine and leaf inlay in the stiles, which are only 3/4 of an inch wide, but look at the detail. The chest has 40 shaped leaves, all with incised leaf veins. The effort continued with a dot and dash inlay. There are 69 dots, and the center of each dot is inlaid with a tiny dot, so each dot required 3 drills. 1 to make the dot, 1 for the hole for the dot, and 1 for the tiny dot. Thus, to make the dot and dash inlay required 207 drillings. One of the fun things about the group are varied and creative apron fans. These are members of the flush top group. The Liberty Hall clock and chest are the only 2 with provenance, which suggest a Frankfort origin, but Lexington is also possible. The most important Frankfort group is the Frankfort School. William Lowry was likely the master, who was born in North Carolina and worked in Frankfort from 1802 to 1810. 3 pieces are signed W. Lowry, allowing other furniture to be attributed. Lowry advertised often, and much is known about his Frankfort activities. He employed 7 journeymen over time and moved to Natchez, Mississippi in 1810, where he established a new shop and died in 1813. Several furniture groups have Lowry traits, including the Frankfort dot and dash group, which is named for the frequent use of dot and dash inlay. The group has three-dimensional fan rosettes and certain flowers that occur on some Lowry pieces. These pieces are the Edwards desk and bookcase group, which have Lowry traits, like the lowermost flower on the server, but was made in another shop. This illustrates the Lowry connection to the lowermost flower on the server. We could explore furniture, but the point is, there are several associated groups comprising a Frankfurt school, with Lowry being the earliest. The other groups likely represent the work of journeymen who worked for Lowry, then started their own cabinet shops. Let's move to rural areas, starting with the bandy leg furniture from Mason, Fleming, and Nicholas counties. It is a school, and the master was Gerard Calvert, who came from Virginia about 1796. Peter Tuttle and John Foxworthy were his students, and others worked in the school. The group is huge and exceeds 120 examples. Known forms include bureaus, blanket chest, desks, stools, and sugar desk, and uses caisson-frame construction, meaning the case was made independent of the footed frame. Most aprons fall into three shapes that begin as a curved apron. If two notches are cut, you get a tri-lobe apron, and with two S-cuts, you get a tri-lobe with spurs apron. Some fit into shop groups, like these chests. They have tri-lobe with spurs aprons with superb shaping, versus this group, which has the same apron but is less successful. Inlay occurs in the school. These chests exhibit conventional usage, but this sugar desk comes from a different mindset, with squares, circles, and arcs in string, and pictorial inlay, including stars, vine and heart, and flowers. Kentucky bandy legs appear French influenced, perhaps from New Orleans northward on the Mississippi River. The similarity of legs and aprons between Louisiana and Kentucky is apparent, but the knees on Louisiana legs do not extend beyond the styles as they do in Kentucky, and Kentucky aprons are less complicated. This stool, which is attributed to Louisiana, is a hybrid. It has Kentucky legs, but the apron is more complex, with a layout that occurs in Louisiana, but not in Kentucky. French influence occurs on other bluegrass furniture, such as this cupboard and chest. They have fleur-de-lis inlays, which are a symbol of French royalty. This is the flowerless vine inlay group, which have shaped aprons, vine inlay, recurring motifs such as stars, faces, and quarter fans, and other motifs. This lady's dressing table is part of a group from the southern bluegrass. Each outer drawer is inlaid with a circle, and others have floral designs. The front legs are chamfered and inlaid with a flower drop. Other variations include geometric designs and a heart. The center drawer on most is inlaid with quarter fans. 8 tables are known, and all are from the same shop. One has a flower hung with a triangular motif that also occurs on these chests and this server. All are from the same shop, which are called the Mallory Group. Adair County in south central Kentucky has a certain flavor of vernacular inlaid furniture like this cupboard group and desk. The inlays of this region boggle the mind, both in quantity and symbolism. These are just some of the motifs on the 3 pieces, including a profile of a Native American warrior. These Adair County clocks have similar forms, but come from different shops. The chamfered corners are inlaid with a vine on one and flowers on the other. One has several patera, one of a shell and the other of a tobacco plant. It is part of the charred inlay group, which is named for the overburned or charred edges of the inlay for shading. The group has two-part flowers with a node at the top that is a group trait. The basic patera is two parts with a serpentine joint. If the core is split, you get this, or this. If you use a scalloped cut, you get this. And if you do it again, you get this. Or this if you're feeling frisky. An arc cut will get you this, or the core can have pictorial inlay. The other clock is associated with this tall chest. It has a vine with a flower that is similar to the one on the clock. Both have petals dressed with wood chips and bandings of serpentine string. Some Kentucky furniture is difficult to grasp, like this desk and bookcase. It is inlaid with vines, tulips, portofans, birds, and eagles, and was made by a Campbell in Madison County. 18 examples are known, including 3 desks and bookcases, which are all extensively inlaid. There are chest of drawers and a sugar desk, miniature chest, and blanket chest. These are examples of Campbell's pictorial inlays and his vine and leaf inlays, which relate to 3 periods: early, middle, and late. The late period has the addition of berries and colored dyes, which were major innovations. Now we have a puzzle. This chest descended in the Chenault family in Kentucky, where there is a large body of Campbell furniture, and this chest descended in the Campbell family of Virginia, where it is the only Campbell piece known. They had the same vase, leaf, and flower, and are in Campbell's middle inlay period. Perhaps the miniature was made while Campbell was visiting relatives in Virginia. His trip would have taken through East Tennessee, where incised and dyed and berry inlay were used. Perhaps this is where Campbell learned these innovations in his late-stage Kentucky work. This Washington County, Tennessee group is the most likely to have influenced Campbell. The same group shows direct influence in Monroe County, Kentucky, where a group of inlaid cupboards was made, which are these. They are inlaid with gamecocks and tassels. In both groups, the birds are one piece, incised and dyed, and have multi-part feet. The inlay appears to be from one shop, which has long been ascribed to Tennessee, but Mary Ann Ramsey, a Kentucky scholar, found this one remained in the family of the first owner, who lived in Monroe County, Kentucky. And Ann McPherson, a Tennessee scholar, noticed that the earliest history of all 5 cupboards was in Kentucky and clustered near Monroe County. So it is now believed that they were made in Kentucky by craftsmen who first worked in Tennessee and are called the Gamecock Cupboard Group. We've been going at a gallop looking at Kentucky furniture. So what have we learned? That Kentucky was part of the early American West, that its furniture is stylistically diverse and her craftsmen came from varied and faraway places, that it is full of sweet little things, urban and rural furniture, and there were Native Americans, chickens, and lots of wonderful foliage. Thank you.